As long as we know that the culture doesn't have any other bacteria or fungi in it, then we can know that
we're growing the right fungus.
Only the right fungus.
Sure,
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Exactly.
Yeah, that totally checks out. Welcome to the Tea Party. I am so excited to introduce one of our new mini-series, Fungal Frontiers. I'm here in the Denver Tech Center with one of my really good friends, Wesley Dolsen. And we're gonna head up to his apartment and learn a little bit more about how to grow mushrooms.
Hey man.
Hey dude, how's it going?
Pretty good. Welcome in.
All right, let's get started.
Yeah, this is everything you need. So basically we're just trying to turn oats into mushrooms, and the question is, how do you do that? It's the same process for every variety.
Sure.
So if you wanted to grow something edible, or since we're in Colorado, if you want to grow something psychoactive, it's gonna be the same steps for that whole process.
And just to clarify, we are in Colorado. Due to Prop 122, all of this is fully legal. Please, please, please check your local jurisdictions, your local laws. Please check with a lawyer if you're really concerned about anything, because we are not lawyers, we're not legal consultants, and we can't really help you out on that one. We're not liable for any of that. So this is the at-home, home-cook version to DIY mushrooms for any mom, pop, Sally, Sue, Steve, whoever.
Yes, I think it's probably about 50 bucks total,
Nice.
which is pretty cheap.
Well, let's get into it, dude.
All right, so I've got some water boiling. Basically, mushrooms need the same things as plants. You're gonna give them food of some kind,
Yeah.
and then you're gonna give them water of some kind so that they can actually grow out in the environment.
Sure, that makes sense.
The nice thing about mushroom growing is you don't have to water it throughout. You just set it all up at the beginning.
Gotcha.
There's like one maintenance step, but you just let it sit for the whole time.
Set it and forget it.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Love that. I'm lazy, so.
Me too. Yeah. I think it'll take about 6 hours of work total.
Cool. And then about how long to actually grow? Like a couple months, right?
Yeah, a couple of months. You're gonna make these jars. So that's gonna take about 3 weeks maybe. And then you're gonna use those to make actual mushrooms, which is gonna take another 3 weeks or so.
Okay, perfect. 6-week process, only a month and a half. That's not that bad.
Yeah, it's a lot faster than, like a tomato or something. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say most normal produce.
So this is Cubensis mycelium. This is some of the psychoactive psilocybin producing mycelium. It's a variety called nutcracker. But all mushrooms are gonna do the same thing where they colonize this. Are you familiar with the difference between spores and cultures?
I know there's a difference, but I don't really understand it very well. So lay it on me. What exactly is the difference?
So, spores are, well, you can think of them like seeds.
Yes.
So these are gonna be the long-term storage for the mushroom.
Sure.
And really what a mushroom is it's a device built to make spores. So we draw the spores up in this water, and then you can use this to sprout what we call mycelium, which is what you can think of like the roots of the mushroom. The other thing with spores is it takes 2 spores to combine to make a culture.
Gotcha.
So if you're buying spores, it's essentially like buying seeds. And if you're buying a liquid culture, it's like buying a seedling, like
Yeah.
a little mini plant.
Gotcha, that totally makes sense.
Yeah. So spores, if you collect them wild, they'll have a lot of diversity because each pairing will make a different kind of mushroom.
Cool.
Whereas
okay.
the culture is mostly just one genetic that's been like isolated down.
Isolated for that. Okay, gotcha.
So we're gonna give them the food in these jars, and then the step after that is we need to give them some water. So we've got these coconut husks, and once we give them some oats to eat, we'll mix them with the coconut husks and some water. And we use these because they're mostly sterile.
Okay.
So any grain will work except for white rice, which will work, but it just has a little less nutrition.
Interesting. Huh. Well, white rice is definitely not as good for you as brown.
But you can just do jars of brown rice and they'll eat that pretty well. So, but we mix it with the coir. So that's essentially their water source, and we'll do that in a tub. I've got some small tubs here and I've got some bigger tubs outside. They like the humid environment that stays in the tub.
Sure.
And unlike plants, there's no maintenance. You just leave it and you come back in 3 weeks and you should have mushrooms. Yeah, so let's get some oats started. I'm gonna pull out a bowl We're gonna measure out some oats.
Oats. Hell yeah.
I recommend using a kitchen scale. You don't have to, but this will let you know how efficient you're being with your mushrooms. So I like to weigh everything during the different steps of the process. These jars, they're pretty full. This is about how full you want them to be because you shake them up during part of the process.
Yes, yes.
So
I've heard about this.
this would be about 200 grams of dried grain. So we're gonna do like 150 today just to make sure there's some good room in there.
Gotcha.
We've got room in the pressure cooker for 7 jars.
Oh, nice.
So we're gonna do 7 times 200, so that's 1400.
700 plus 350.
Yeah, so 1050. Yeah, so 1050 grams of grain. Okay, about 1050.
1054.
Okay, and these are whole feed oats. And another really good example is birdseed. Like you can buy birdseed. Sometimes you can get it 20 pounds for $10 at the grocery store, and that works super well. This is birdseed. Right?
Oh, really? That's birdseed.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So I've got a pot of water boiling.
Yes.
This is just excessive water, like way more water than you have oats.
Sure.
And we're gonna boil it for about 30 minutes.
Cool, cool, cool.
So the goal is oats are dried for storage, or grains are dried for storage so that they don't grow fungus naturally.
We want them to grow fungus.
But we want them to, so we're gonna boil them. For smaller grains, it doesn't take as long. So if you're using millet or birdseed, you only wanna do about 10 to 15 minutes.
Gotcha.
The oats, we're gonna do for 30.
Those are thick.
Yeah, and you wanna cook them to about 2/3 of how you would eat them. And we're trying to make them soft, but we don't wanna make oatmeal.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
That's a big benefit of grain, is that it has such a high surface area, because if you think of like a block of cheese and you get a spot of mold on it, it's gonna take a really long time for the mold to go like all the way across and around.
Yeah.
Whereas if you had grain, then it can just grow directly through.
No, that makes sense.
It's kind of nasty when you think about it, but it's good for us.
I mean, yeah, it's gross if it's not like controlled for, you know, our benefit.
Yeah.
If it was in the walls, that might not be great.
Do you have any questions about the process so far?
It's pretty because I know a decent amount at this point in my illustrious psychedelic career. I've heard I've heard and watched and learned a lot about how to grow mushrooms. I just haven't really done it. So the process seems relatively straightforward. You prepare the food, the seed quote unquote, or seedling eats the food, and then you transfer it over and make sure it can actually grow.
I like to think of it as just as easy as gardening. It's really the same steps. It's no more complicated than soil and seeds. The only really thing you need to learn is the sterile component of it. So we're making jars like this because they are a sealed environment for us.
Sure.
So we can sterilize those in a pressure cooker or a pot, and then we can introduce our culture to it. And as long as we know that the culture doesn't have any other bacteria or fungi in it, then we can know that
we're growing the right fungus.
only the right fungus.
Sure, that makes sense.
Exactly.
Yeah, that totally checks out.
Like shiitake, you can grow them outside on a tree. Obviously, all mushrooms will grow outside in nature sometimes.
I've seen those like log kits, you know, on like Instagram and stuff.
Yeah.
Like grow your own mushrooms on a log.
Which is cool. Like you throw it in your yard and it'll consume it over the course of 4 years or 3 years.
That's really cool.
Just eat the hardwood straight. But the grain is just so much more efficient, so much faster. For example, shiitake would take 3 to 4 years on a log, but this is gonna take 4 months, 5 months total.
I see.
For the whole process.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. No, that's very different.
Once the mycelium has actually eaten everything in the jar, it will resist mold landing on it or bacteria trying to colonize it because it's an organism.
What exactly does pasteurizing leave behind? Is it just like the good bacteria, quote unquote, or?
It's this is a do your research moment. This is a double check your research moment. So sterilizing is meant to reduce it down to the point where you can leave it for weeks and there will still not be noticeable growth of any kind, completely toasted. Pasteurizing, you're trying to give it a severe hit so that it doesn't have most of the remaining stuff in it.
Yeah.
But the benefit of pasteurizing something, competition is important to keep bad stuff out.
Sure.
So like this jar can outcompete anything that lands in it because it's like 100% mycelium.
All right, guys, thank you so much for watching Fungal Frontiers. That was part 1 on how you prep grain for spawn jars. That was the start of our journey for growing mushrooms at home. Make sure to join us for part 2 as well, so we can get into more of how you're actually gonna feed those mushrooms.